All in all, about a fifth of the food for a couple is being produced here, and we have plenty of space left. So I get a lot of fun out of this. It's more fun than chess. And we can put some little fish in here. We could even have frogs here. We couldn't eat the frogs because you get to know them individually and you can't eat your friends. Most cannibals only eat strangers. Okay, so this is the first fruits of the garden.
When we first stepped on the planet, we lived by our wits, hunting and gathering. We took our food from the abundance around us and learnt to live with the natural system. But as we began to live in communities, we started to organize nature. Back-breaking work was needed to create harvests of annual crops. Agriculture became the central activity on the planet, and its surpluses allowed cities to grow, spawning the industrial age. The machines moved to the farms, and people moved to the factories. But with ever-growing urban populations, we needed to expand our arable land.
This is your shoe hole. You put a plank in here and you hop up on that. Down on there, you put an axe cut in here. You put a shoe there, go around the back, and put a saw cut in for the tree.
When he was in his early 20s, Mollison was part of the generation that cleared the forests. Globally, since 1940, we have cleared an area the size of North America.
I spent 3 years, I suppose we cut about 6 to 8 houses a day, flooring and framing, siding boards. Slowly, one day I asked at lunchtime, did any of us own a house? And none of us did. And it occurred to me then that some of us were killing things for the rest of society, and I wondered who was it who wasn't building their own houses. And I decided never to cut a tree down unless I needed to cut a tree down, and I haven't ever needed to cut a tree down, so it shows you the amount of destruction that you can create when you're thinking about what you're doing, I suppose. The work was totally brutalising, and I think the most thing I remember about it was we didn't have any time at all to think, and it sort of drove you crazy.
But the machine promised to put an end to mindless toil, and monoculture became the new method of production. It offered a vision of feeding the world with mile upon mile of single crops. Today, over half the world's produce consists of just 4 easily harvested plants: wheat, rice, maize, and potatoes. But we had simplified nature, and it started going wrong. We were producing not only single crops, but single pests. The battle began. Exposed to attack, the farmer was forced to defend his fields against the ravages of disease and predators.
So, if anything, agriculture, as we know it, have known it since 1940, is really a continuation of the Second World War.
Since 1940, 70% of our soils have been destroyed.
With all the armaments and chemical manufacturers directing their weapons against nature.
40% of the water of the world has been poisoned by agriculture. A species is lost every 6 minutes.
Nothing on earth is so destructive. If we don't stop agriculture, then we're all dead.
In 20 years, there will be 1/3 the arable land to feed twice as many people. In 1954, Bill became a research assistant for the scientific unit CSIRO, and for 9 years lived in the wilderness studying forest ecology. He returned to formal studies in 1966 and was later appointed to the University of Tasmania. Over 15 years, he had acquired an immense practical knowledge of forest systems.
I looked at the existing forest systems and realised the productivity is hundreds of times greater than man-made agricultural systems. So that I thought we could create forests with components of animals and plants far more suitable for our own use. Productivity would then be higher than a natural forest, and our yields would dwarf those of any commercial farm. So it wasn't until 75 or 72 really that I saw the need to activate that sort of thinking and to produce it as something which we call permaculture, but call it what you like. It's an active application of things you've observed to systems that you construct.
Well, it's 500
And I think
pages.
it reads very well. I quite like it, actually. It's not too radical.
Bill believed he could construct environments that were as stable as the rainforest. His designs integrate houses, plants and animals into a living system. It begins at the back door. Every zone has a collection of species that regulate each other and needs virtually no maintenance. Every element has many functions. A dam can air condition a house or reflect sunlight to heat sensitive plants. In 1978, he published his manifesto, Permaculture 1. 2 more have since been added, and his works have been translated into 7 languages.
I wasn't prepared for the rush of inquiries to design farms, and it terrified me to go out designing other people's properties, so I did it for nothing for a few years. Some years, 3 years. And when I designed 200 or 300 farms and the feedback was fairly good, I decided I could teach design. But up to that point, I wouldn't have thought of teaching design.
The land right before our eyes there hasn't produced anything, and what will we do with it?
It's only a matter of which sort of forest. We can have it in long-term, high-quality timber.
Mollison was prepared to teach anyone who would listen. With the rise of the environmental movement, he found a ready audience. But while most were protesting for the preservation of rainforests, Bill was training his army for the restoration of the land that had been destroyed.
Nitrogenous high cover under which the black passion fruits seed and go up.
His fight with ideas had begun, and forests of food were his final goal.
Reinvigorate this back into a faster production. The highest energy. The initial reaction from the teaching establishment was one of shock, horror and opposition. And I could say that the whole of the educational establishment almost rose against me. I was invited to speak to august bodies with the object really of tearing me to pieces. I was treading across the disciplines. Permaculture always did lie between the disciplines. It's a connecting system between disciplines.
We'll have the mayor and building supplies from the 10 bill. Station, welcome out the planning to stand by. Welcome out the planning.
But Mollison's ideas kept growing, and his band of converts turned to influencing the mainstream. Once a year, every major town holds a show, and the local permaculture group has its stall next to the tractor and pesticide companies. Handing out seedlings and show bags, they hope they'll win the war, but they are up against powerful forces. Agriculture is the cultural and economic backbone of the Lucky Country. The fair presents a rosy image of rural health and abundance. But the real problem, Mollison says, is that modern agriculture is not a system for producing food, but producing money.